Good morning, fellow travelers. It's time to meal prep. It's Sunday, and this is the day when I get up early and make all of our food for the week. So let's go. In the wintertime, we have soup and sometimes sandwiches on gluten-free bread on Sundays. So for this week's soup, we're gonna have some neck bones and green beans. I canned these neck bones back in October of 2018. I've got some frozen green beans here, which is a total cheater step, and some onions. I'll be making that in the crock pot. So that's what's for dinner tonight. Tomorrow night, Mr. Biggs will be having peppers and onions with sausage and this yellow rice that I got at Aldi. I'll be having this white fish with some steamed broccoli. On Tuesday night, we'll be having beef tips. I canned this beef in March of 2019. With mushroom and onion gravy and mashed potatoes, and probably have some cabbage with that because I have a cabbage in the fridge from when we went to the farmer's market. On Wednesday, we'll be having, Mr. Biggs is gonna have chicken breast, I'm gonna have turkey. I am allergic to chicken, so I don't eat chicken at all. We're gonna have it with these sweet potatoes and some turnip greens that I canned in March of 2019. So then Thursday night, we are going to have a freezer meal. I have this chili that I have in the freezer, so we're gonna have that with some bean chips instead of corn chips, and probably some onion and maybe a little cheddar cheese for a little treat. I'm not sure yet, but that'll be our dinner for Thursday night. Let's get cooking. I like using parchment paper on my baking sheets when I'm doing my meal prep. It makes it a lot easier to clean up at the end. It's super simple, and here I am taking the sweet potatoes, lining those up, and I'm going to poke holes in each one so that they bake. Next up, I have my turkey breast, and I'm going to slice that in half so that it cooks evenly. Still slicing. Obviously this one was a tough one. It did not want to cut. Then I've got Mr. Biggs, his chicken breast, and his is pre-cut. So I'm just gonna tear that apart and get it down on the tray. I went and washed my hands. This is Everglades Heat. It is Mr. Biggs' favorite. Sprinkle that on the chicken breast. I'm really a stickler on cross-contamination and making sure that there aren't germs everywhere. So here we go. I'm going to do the yellow rice now. I buy the yellow rice at Aldi's. It's inexpensive, and Mr. Biggs really, really likes it. So I try to make sure that I make him things that he enjoys, even though I don't eat rice or grains normally. He can still eat rice, and he really enjoys it. I forgot to put butter in, so I put a little olive oil, and just going to give it a little stir here. I'm going to cover it and let it just sit on the back of the stove. Next up, I'm going to do my fish. Got my parchment paper, setting my fish down. I just sprinkle the fish. I don't put any fat on it or anything. I just sprinkle it with a little bit of garlic salt. And I've got some parsley. And just give it a little sprinkle and stick it in the oven. So I like to stack things in the oven. I set it at 350 degrees and keep going. Here's my vitamin B. I take this every morning, helps me with energy. Don't want to forget that. Next up, I've got my onions and mushrooms for my beef tip meal. Just gonna chop up the onions really quick and then the mushrooms. Still chopping. Still chopping. Maybe I should have edited this down a little more. I'm gonna start on my mushrooms. I have to say, those onions were extremely potent. They really had me crying there for a minute. Woof! So I'm gonna chop up my mushrooms. And there they all are done. My fish is all done baking, so I'm just gonna throw my broccoli down into my meal prep containers and then put the fish down on top of it. Oops, missed a little piece there. I may decide to make some quinoa on the day that I serve this. It just depends on how hungry I am. Next up, I'm gonna make Mr. Big's sausage, peppers, and onions meal to go over top of his yellow rice. So just chopping up. The red onions were not as potent as those white onions. I haven't had onions sting my eyes like that in a long time, so they must have been really super fresh. This is one of the green peppers that we got at our flea market, farmer's market haul. They were really, really, really crisp and fresh. Very happy to have those in our meal prep for this week. I'm actually allergic to green peppers, which is why I'm not eating this meal. And he has some chicken sausage as well, so this is definitely a no meal for me. But this is a meal he really enjoys. So I'm going to throw the sausages in my preheated cast iron pan. Brown them a little bit. Just have a little bit of oil in there. Toss in my peppers and onions. And give them a little stir around. Everything's looking really good. I love to cook with lots of vegetables and vibrant colors. It's one of my favorite things to do. Stir it around a little more. And there you have it, all done. So I'm just gonna put the rice into the meal prep containers. I got these meal prep containers on Amazon. They are glass. I purchased them 3 or 4 years ago and I love them. They have held up so well. I did order some extra tops when I originally got them because I wanted to make sure that if I ever got a crack in one that I would have some extras, but I have only ever had one crack and that's been in the last couple of months. So Mr. Biggs and I both have access to a microwave at work, so you'll see 2 of each meal. One is for dinner and the next one is for lunch the next day. There's my mashed potatoes for my beef tip meal. Toss those in the KitchenAid mixer. And got some garlic salt. There's also a half a stick of butter in the bottom of the mixer. A little bit of pepper. Put that on low. Ooh, look at this steam. All right, potatoes are done. Everything's looking great. I don't add any milk or anything to my potatoes. I just use the potatoes, salt, pepper, and butter. There's a nice big dollop of butter. We're gonna make the beef tips and mushroom gravy. Got some nice onion there. Gonna stir that around in the butter till it's nice and soft and kind of translucent. So I'm gonna put a couple tablespoons of gluten-free flour into, there it is, gluten-free flour, into my pan, and I'm going to cook that thoroughly so that we don't have that raw flour taste. Add my mushrooms. Give those a nice stir around. So in each jar is approximately 1 pound of meat, and that will go for 4 meals, lunch, dinner, lunch, dinner. I've got my broth, add that, give it quite a little stir. And then I'll let that simmer until it comes into a nice gravy. I did end up adding some more water just because it was a little bit too thick. There we have it. There's our beef. It doesn't look like much, but it tastes really delicious. It's super tender. We leave the fat in there. So there we go. And I don't allow myself to put metal into the jars to scrape them out. So usually I just dump it. Move that around a little bit. It's time to clean up. So I like to watch videos while I clean my kitchen. And I hand wash all of my dishes. I do have a dishwasher, but I never use it because I don't like dishwashers. I think that they're super noisy. And so there we have it, just me cleaning up. I'm a clean as you go cook, so I wipe and clean and do the dishes as I'm cooking. And checking out a little video. I also hand dry all of the dishes and put them away. That way when I'm done cooking, my kitchen is already all clean and the dishes are all done and I don't have to do anything else. Okay, it's time to do the meal prep containers for the beef tips meal. I've got my mashed potatoes going down, and these have been cooled slightly. One thing I love about my stainless steel island is that you can put things directly on the island that are hot, especially that cast iron. If you put that on a quartz or a granite countertop, you would be in big trouble. So I'm just taking the measuring cup and spooning it into the meal prep containers. I didn't used to have a huge kitchen. I used to have a very, very small kitchen, and that was my only measuring cup that I had in the whole house. So I've moved to a bigger kitchen about 2 years ago, but I've never have replaced my measuring cups just because I don't really need to, I guess. I don't really know. But you'll see me use the same utensil, the same bowls, the same cups over and over again. Now we're gonna do the turkey, sweet potato, and greens meal. Chopping up my proteins. That's my turkey. And then there's Mr. Big's chicken, and I can definitely tell the difference because that Everglades heat is so spicy and hot. It has that red color to it, so I'm definitely not gonna get those mixed up between his and mine. But I am allergic to the spice and the actual chicken. So I wanted to pop in really quick and show you guys how I make my neck bones and green beans. I have these neck bones and I canned these in 2018 in October, and Jeremy had gotten a really nice little pig, so we decided to can everything from him. So just my little, of course it's a key, of course it is. I'm gonna open this bad boy up and hear how awesome that was. You can probably hear my dryer going in the background, but time stops for no woman. I've got some chopped onions here, and in my crock pot I have 2 bags of frozen green beans. Now, I will tell you that any Southern woman is going to tell you, frozen green beans, no girl. But that's how I'm gonna do it this weekend because I'm short on time and long on projects to do. So I got my stuff in there, and we're back. I have my my jar of neck bones here in my hand. I don't know what I'm saying. Since I already have this dirty, I'm just gonna kind of mash this all together a little bit. And I have some broth that I'm going to pour over the top. Looks kind of good. Alrighty. Mr. Biggs likes his neck bones to be more soupy, so I've got quite a bit of broth going there. Okay. Now I'm gonna put this on my crock pot on low. I'll see you guys back here in about 4 hours. Who's mommy's good girl? Do you want a sweet potato? Sweet potatoes are her favorite. She loves them. Don't you, Cookie? So I decided at the last minute that Mr. Biggs probably will wither if I don't make him some fresh, gluten-free apple cinnamon muffins to go with his breakfast next week. So let's get cracking. I've got my apples already shredded here, and if I need some extra apple goodness or I fall a little short, I'm just gonna put some applesauce in. I bake by eye normally. I don't use a lot of recipes, or I just consider the recipe a guideline and then do whatever I want. So we're gonna start out with some sunflower oil, which I have right here. I like sunflower oil. It's not GMO. 3/4 of a cup, and it calls for 1 cup of sugar. Now, I measure all of my stuff in 1 measuring cup because I don't like to do dishes. So yes, I do my dry ingredients in a wet, my oven is preheated. So yes, I do the dry ingredients in a wet measuring vessel. I have this little baking caddy. This is what I keep all of my baking stuff in, so that when I want to bake, I just pull it down, use all the stuff in it, and then I'm done. I can put it all back at one time. So I've got my sugar, my salt, eggs, 2 large eggs. I have those. Thanks, girls. That's all mixed. So now in go the apples. All right, up next we're going to put in our flour. And this calls for 2 cups of flour. Over the backside of that mixer. Be honest, never done this whole shoot and cook thing at the same time. It's enlightening to say the least. You YouTubers out there that have been doing it for years, you totally have my respect because this is hard. Okay. I'm probably gonna get asked this, but I use King Arthur gluten-free flour, cup for cup. I love it. It's the best flour that I found so far, and a girl that I used to work with, she used that exclusively and she was quite the baker. So let's turn this bad boy on and see what we get. So the trick that I've found for gluten-free anything is not to over mix your flour. This looks pretty decent actually. I'm pretty excited. Let's get it in some tins. All right, let's do this. Got some brown sugar here because Mr. Biggs is a sucker for a brown sugar topping on any kind of muffin. I left the peels on my apples because I like the fiber and nutrients and vitamins that you get when you leave the peels on. All right, I'm gonna bring you back when I'm done. Oh, hey. I had to do a little taste test, you know, for science.